Hey, welcome to the 203rd episode of Just Shoot It, a podcast about filmmaking, screenwriting, and directing. This episode is brought to you by patrons Morgan Rout, Jamie Sadler, and Garen Chadwick. I'm Oren Kaplan.
And I'm Carlyn Hudson. And today we have Tony Franklin to talk to us about commercial directing.
You might recognize Carlyn's voice as not Matt's voice. This is our second time doing an episode without Matt. For the record, I've never missed an episode.
Job.
Last time?
Yeah.
Last time was Liz Manischel.
Damn.
We had
She's
Emily,
after my job.
Yeah. We had Emily Best on of Seed and Spark. Mm-hmm. And many people thought it was one of our best episodes.
So no pressure.
Yeah. So no pressure, Carlyn. But today we have Tony Franklin on, and the three of us have multiple things in common, but most importantly is we all work at the same Starbucks.
The one on Hillhurst. Ooh,
Yep.
We shouldn't give away industry secrets.
No, I talked about it way too much. Today I was there and I was like working on my laptop, and there was this guy like standing, like waiting to get his coffee. And I couldn't tell if he was like looking at me or looking at his phone. And I have this Just Shoot It sticker on my laptop. I was like, I feel like this guy knows who I am, like knows or suspects who I am because I have this Just Shoot It sticker. And I'm like, he's probably just pulled out his phone because he wants to look up what I look like to see if I'm the person he thinks I might be. And then he's going to come up to me and say like, hey, are you Oren? And he never.
And none of that happened.
I guess he got too shy to come and talk to me. Or I was just making all that up in my head.
Perhaps. Well, last time I saw you there, I was wearing your Just Shoot It hat.
Yeah.
I didn't expect to see you. It was very funny.
I remember. And you told the barista.
Yeah, because everyone comments on that hat. I wear it a lot.
It's so weird because I wear my Just Shoot It sticker all the time and nobody ever says anything.
What do you mean you're wearing your Just Shoot It sticker?
I'm holding a laptop. It says Just Shoot It on it. No one is like, oh, what's that?
Yeah, but a hat is an easier conversation piece.
Well, I wear this hat. It says window seat.
Wear your own hat. Wear your Just Shoot It hat.
I will. I do wear it sometimes.
Okay,
just
good.
Like people on the podcast know that I like this trucker hat, even though apparently trucker hats aren't cool.
So, hey, Oren, what have you been up to lately?
I've been writing treatments. I guess it's February. Everyone says things pick up in February, and they kind of are. But yeah, I have a job coming up, and I've been slacking on my passion project.
Not good.
Yeah. But what about you? You have a short premiering at South by. It's
public
knowledge now.
It's public knowledge now. Yeah, it's called Waffle. It's like a horror comedy.
That sounds hilariously scary.
It's terrifying. No, it's not super scary, but it's set in 5 minutes in the future. Our favorite sci-fi term. Mm-hmm. And it's good. I'm really excited for people to see it.
Is it your first horror thing? Oh, sorry.
It is my first horror thing. It was actually the first time I worked with the stunt coordinator, and that was super fun. And we have a hilarious, because we had rehearsals, and we have a really funny video that he made from our rehearsals that's just terrible. And like, our actresses are like, oh no, and there's a door slamming, and it's very, very cheesy. And so I can't wait to put a side by side of that with the real footage that looks really beautiful.
What's the stunt?
I feel like I'll give it away, actually.
You'll give away there's
a little action sequence. Yeah, kind of, because it's sort of towards the end, and I'll tell you, there's a knife, there's a struggle.
I don't need to watch it anymore. Knife and the struggle and a waffle. I'm assuming this knife cuts this waffle.
No.
It's funny and scary.
But yeah, we had like a stunt person for it. It was fun.
That's cool. And so when I've worked with stunt people in the past, there's this idea that stunt people will also help you figure out where to put the camera.
He was obsessed with trying to help me where to put the camera, and eventually I had to be like, I got it.
Well, did you not feel like his instincts were correct, or that he was helpful in that way?
No, it was definitely helpful. I think I was just so open-minded in the beginning, and that he was like, oh wow, she really doesn't know anything or something. Like I went too far in the open
But it was
category.
Just about, like, isn't it like, hey, she's going to punch her over here and the hand is going to be like 6 inches away, so you should have the camera behind the head of the person getting punched. Wasn't it stuff like that?
He was a little bit like, actually, if you put the camera low,
it'll look super badass.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, it's not really the style of our movie.
Do you know the light bulb stunt person joke? Like, how many
No.
stunt people does it take to change a light bulb?
No.
It's like something along the lines of like 1 to change the light bulb and 4 to be like, that was so badass.
And that's why they don't have a category at the Oscars.
Yeah, though Brad Pitt did.
He did mention him. I was
did
cool.
thank stunt performers. Yeah.
Yeah.
My friend's dad was the president of the Stunt Performers Association.
Awesome.
So
Love it.
Oh, Victory's dad. You know Victory.
Oh my God.
Palm
Really?
Solano? Yeah.
Holy shit.
Her dad. Yeah.
Well, yes. So anyways, I have that short premiering next month.
And you're doing
And
like a
Shorts
digital series.
program 3 at South by. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's
Shorts
cool.
program 3, South by.
Yeah,
Go
so
check
if
it
you're
out
there,
if you're
come
there.
find me. And see the movie. And then, yeah.
And this is your second short at South by.
It's my second short and my third. I had a episodic premiere. In 2016, I had a
All right,
pilot.
the long distance.
Yes.
LDR. What was it called?
Distance.
Distance.
So, yeah, in 2016, I had the episodic pilot. 2018, I had a short film called Nice Ass. And this is called Waffle. It's 2020. It's kind of cool.
Right.
I guess in
think it's
2
pronounced
years, I'll be
Niçois.
back. That's the French. We did play a few French festivals, oddly.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's not surprising. Really.
It's kind of French humor, perhaps.
Yeah, it's about a giant butt. It kind of reminds me of, have you ever seen this Woody Allen film called It's Everything You Always Wanted to Know About Sex But Were Afraid to Ask?
Oh, I have heard of that one.
Classic Woody Allen film where there's giant breasts running down
Oh, God.
a hill, and Carlyn's film has a giant ass in it.
That's right.
So today I was on YouTube and I saw a trailer for a Woody Allen film called A Rainy Day in New York.
Shut up.
And it
He's
was
still making movies. They're letting him make movies
dude,
still?
listen to the cast. Timothy Chalamet, Elle Fanning, Liev Schreiber, Suzanne Smith, Selena Gomez,
Okay, well.
Will Rogers, Annalee Ashford, Jude Law. These are clearly in order of appearance. Rebecca Hall. I mean, it's
Holy
like Diego
shit.
Luna. An insane cast. And it's for a movie that came out like last year that I've never heard of.
I did hear about this because a lot of those people got some, obviously,
Some grief.
Twitter exploded on them. Woke Twitter.
Yeah, I saw the trailer and it's like, it was the type of trailer where I was like, if it was on Amazon Prime right now and I could just hit play, I would probably watch the first 20 minutes. But I
Right.
don't think I'm going to like make a giant
Right.
effort to go out to see
He's
it.
such an interesting case of, besides the terrible sexual abuse, just quantity versus quality filmmaking.
Yeah.
He just makes so many movies.
But he also does prove that if you make a lot of stuff, eventually some of it will be pretty good.
Yeah. And some of
which is-
it was incredible.
Yeah.
Even Blue Jasmine, I thought was incredible.
Yeah. Well, even like Midnight in Paris overall has some very
It's
bad
charming.
acting in it and some weak moments, but there's just scenes or concepts or like ideas that you're like, oh, yeah, I guess the whole movie was worth it for this idea to watch it. So, yeah, I enjoy his movies and yeah, he's
You looked at me. I enjoy his movies.
well, he's like a weirdo. The thing is, even before the sex stuff came out, I mean, he was married to his daughter already, right? And he was just like famously known to like not want to talk to people. Like I think Scarlett Johansson, who he was like obsessed with, said she like walked down the street and saw him across, the street in New York and like waved to him and thought like, oh, hey, Woody, how's it going? And he just waved and kept walking. Like he didn't even stop for a conversation.
Wow.
And I think he's kind of famous for not really saying much to his actors on set. But, he hires the best actors in the world. So you don't need to tell them much.
I will say ever since all this stuff came out in a big way, I won't pay to see his movies.
Yeah.
Vote with your dollar.
Well, cool. Okay.
Yeah, we got to move
Let's
on.
talk to Tony Franklin. I know Tony from Starbucks.
Yeah, man.
Is that how you really met?
How long have you been working there?
Well, they do know our name. Let's see. We met about maybe 8 months ago there.
Yeah. But Tony said, I think I had a Just Shoot It sticker on my laptop. And he was like, hey, I think
Yeah.
I heard you on Jordan Brady's podcast. You had heard me on Jordan Brady's podcast.
Yeah, and a DP that I've worked with, Eric Schleicher, he had mentioned your name and the podcast. So I guess I've been checking out the podcast for a couple of years now.
Yeah. So not to be outdone, Tony was like, well, I've also been on Jordan Brady's podcast.
So would you call yourself a fan?
I don't think he's a fan.
No,
No.
I never asked to be
Wow.
on.
Well, it's
Well.
too bad we caught you.
Yep.
Yeah.
No,
well,
it's
no.
great.
Asking to be on has nothing to do with being a fan.
Right.
I think a true fan wouldn't ask to be on.
Oh, yeah.
Because they'd think we're too good
Right, right.
for them. But yeah, so we work there, and Tony's like a commercial director also, and he used to work for Target, right? You were an art director there for 8 years.
Yeah, so basically I started out in there like retouching, and then I had the studio
Oh, like
open.
catalog photos?
Yeah, no, like online digital stuff, but then I had the studio open on the weekends, so I would just go in and create my own campaigns, and then I would make magazines, and I'd drop them off on creative directors' desks, and so then I became an art director. And then I did that for about 8 years, and then, I just started like shadowing directors. I'd just take vacation time. They didn't have to pay me. I'd just carry bags, whatever. And
like commercial directors?
More like photographers that were doing directing. They might like bring on a video shoot on the side of their photography thing,
Right.
So I did that, and then basically I just started making documentaries on the weekends. Found a DP and some good stories, and just convinced post houses that they could have all the footage, and if they had an edit seat open, they would just have their editors work on it for free. So I did about
Wait, what did they get out of it? Footage?
well, they could get, they need stuff to talk about too, like in their monthly mailers or website updates, and I don't know. I think they just.
And what part of the country is this in?
That was
I
in
think it's relevant.
Yeah, that was in Minneapolis.
Okay, so
Yeah.
post houses in Minneapolis are
Right.
starving for footage.
No, I got to thank them though. Like my first 10 projects that I did, I self-produced with some other people, whoever was joining on that project, maybe the DP or a producer. But that's how I made the first, 10 things, all while I still had my day job at Target. And so I entered those into the One Screen show in New York, and I got shortlisted 2 years in a row. And that same year, TheAtlantic.com picked me up as best short film of the year, and they get tons of viewers. So,
And what was that you made?
let's see. I think the two that made it into the One Screen show, one was Miss Monroe. It's a short film about a drag queen performer, and the other
how
one.
did you find that subject?
We were at a restaurant. I was with some other film peeps. We were just talking, and all of a sudden this bingo thing started in the same room, but we weren't playing. So this drag queen performer just started making fun of us. And so I looked up, and it turns out every Wednesday night this thing went on. So I went the next Wednesday before they set up, and I just wrote down on the back of my business card, some other docs that I've done, just so I wouldn't, offend the person. And I mean, there was a lot of those kinds of stories. Just I did this thing called the Derby Man. He was a 65-year-old demolition derby driver. And so to find him, I just would go to all these demolition derby things. It just came to mind because I went to one as a child. And so I would just buy pit passes, and I would go back and just meet everybody. And then I found the Derby Man. So
And then you just ask them hey, I want to do a documentary on you?
yeah.
Do you give them an angle? Do you say hey, well, obviously the older derby guy is interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you, the drag queen, do you say hey, I'm really interested in what kind of person?
Yeah, I
does
mean,
this?
well, I did one about outdoor pond hockey in Minnesota. It got the staff pick or whatever. So, it got a lot of views. So I had a lot of these banked up, and after you have 3 or 4 stories built, they trust you, just to do your
Who's
thing.
they? A stranger?
The subject matters that you would find either through
But there's no way that this driver guy had heard of One Screen.
No.
Festival,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. No, I mean, that you wouldn't even bring it up because they wouldn't know exactly. But you just kind of sit down and talk to them, and just tell them what you do, and you're not charging them anything. It's free for them. And a lot of times, these people, they're so passionate about their craft or who they are or what they do that they're excited to kind of talk about it. Maybe Miss Monroe was really good for that person to share with his family what he did, because they didn't live in Minnesota. They were in Iowa or something. So it was a really connecting film. And the one about outdoor hockey, there's a guy that passed away, and that's why we made the film. We made it about him and what he and this team and what they all meant to each other. So his family came up when we spread his ashes on this pond that they skated on. So
And that's not disrespectful?
Well, that's what they wanted.
Skating on someone's ashes?
No, yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of how it started. I just made a bunch of these short films. And being in Minnesota, I didn't work in at Target. I didn't work in TV. I worked in the photo art direction. So, I didn't really know anybody. I was just really blind to like what I was getting into even. So that basically the one screen show, when I shortlisted there, I was against some big production companies. So they all just, the second year, they're like, who is this guy? So they all emailed me, and I went to like have lunch or dinners with all of them. And so that's kind of how I got started. Like, well, I can maybe do this or make money even. So I did the day job, and then kind of ran out of vacation time making commercials. And I was there, I think it was 10 years I was at Target. And so finally I just quit one day, and it's kind of the golden handcuffs, Minnesota. Like, that's a really good creative job, and it's a good company to work for. But yeah, and then my first year directing, like I said, I didn't know anybody. Nobody knew me. So I was just kind of like, what do I do? Had these random, like, dirty documentaries, So the first year I lived off soup that my parents made, didn't make any money that first year. But then the second year I started to learn more about the business and networking and just how to kind of, it's not like LA where you can just set up meetings and go there, or run into someone at the coffee shop. It's just not like that, obviously. So for the second year, I think I landed BMW, and that was kind of how it all started.
Landed, what do you mean at BMW?
I did their first electric cars. Did their Christmas commercials, holiday.
Your first commercial was a car commercial?
No. I think my first one was a stuffed animal commercial. That first year I didn't make, it was just like, whatever, I'll direct whatever,
Yeah.
But did you didn't find like local companies that needed?
No, not too much. I mean, I did like, the local banks and stuff like that there's production companies in Minneapolis, there's some good ones. So I did some, still like today I'm freelance, I just freelance with local production companies.
Well, cool. Well, you actually kind of brought up a lot of why I thought you would be a good guest on the podcast, because I don't know if you realize this, is that you're just like an amazing networker. Like, even the way you think about relationships with people, like, I don't know about you, Carlyn, but like my first instinct when I speak to someone isn't like about how they're getting all this stuff out of me, like without it costing them anything. Like, I think the way you approach people and relationships and meetings is like kind of unique and like really good, in a way where you have an attitude of like, it's good for me to meet anyone, and also this person is going to get something from meeting me, right? You even told me yesterday that you don't put thank you pages in your treatment because you feel like it's like a two-way exchange where you're giving them ideas, right?
Yeah, I mean, I hope my thankfulness, I guess, comes through in my creative approach of what I say, like that I'm excited and, all that kind of stuff. And I think the creative is amazing and, that kind of stuff. But yeah, I feel like you're basically giving them this free work. It's not, sometimes I say thank you, not always, but I just feel like, here you go. This is what I feel is the best approach for this job. And let's hop on a call and talk about it.
Right.
And I think you should also try to be the last person they talk to before they make the decision. So you try to like...
Well, okay, let's not get ahead, because I have questions about this.
Yeah.
But I think that's really interesting, because it's the exact opposite of how my manager is pitching me for this TV show.
Yeah.
Which I am questioning. He like really is like, we got to get in early. We got to be top of mind, like get ahead of the competition. But I think that's like the easiest way to get forgotten. But anyway, we'll talk about that.
Yeah, and also just to step back real quick, I just moved to LA about 10, 11 months ago. I've been directing full time for about 9 years. So I basically, 90% of what's on my reel I did while living in Minneapolis. So, there's that whole like, do you have to live in LA, thing? And I actually think you do. Like, I stayed in Minneapolis because I was taking care of some family. Otherwise we would have been here, long ago. But the interesting thing is networking and short films, making passion projects and things like that. That was how I kind of connected with people, is I would just make content, short documentaries or even, 30-second spots that I wouldn't put a logo on necessarily. But, that was my way to reach out to people and kind of make it a two-way street. Like, here's something that I made, I produced, wrote, directed it, gets their attention. So that's kind of how I develop relationships all over the country because living in Minneapolis, there's not only so
Like
many.
you kind of had to.
Yeah.
You had to get good at emailing. You had to get good at saying like, "Hey, I'm a director.
Yeah.
Like, let me do this thing," right? Because that's, I mean, don't you sometimes, Carlyn, feel like you don't want to ask an actor that's working a lot to be in your thing because you're like, well, what are they going to get from it? But
Yeah.
like, it's a much better attitude to be like, hey, I'm going to make this thing for you.
Yeah, I was meeting with a producer recently, a commercial producer, and she was kind of like, people want you. Are you kidding me? They're like dying for female comedy directors. She's like, you should be the top of everyone's list right now. I was like,
Yeah.
nobody wants me, blah, blah, blah. And she was like, you have the wrong attitude. So
Yeah.
I think that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it is basically the only way to survive, really, in the directing world, because, again, I didn't know anybody. I would come to LA and set up, like, in New York, I would set up, like, 5 days straight of, like, 3 meetings a day, in LA.
It's a lot in New York.
Well, yeah, I mean, you got really good at, taking all the subways and all that stuff and finding the cheapest hotels. But yeah, you'd be surprised if you, like, just say, hey, I want 15 minutes of your time, usually. And I also, like, preface, like, I'm not looking to sign, like, this is previous years.
This is when you're emailing a production company and you're saying, I would like to meet with you. And just for our listeners that aren't super versed in like this commercial language, when we talk about production companies in the commercial world, we're talking about companies that bid on commercials and that make commercials and that ultimately hire directors.
Yeah, I would just say, look, my reel isn't ready to be, repped by you, so you're not going to break my heart by saying, so just so you know, I'm not looking to come in and just be signed by you. So if you break down that barrier, that's one wall that they're like, okay, come on in, just setting up a meeting now, so in 5 years, see where we're both at, just so we know each other. And then, then you develop that relationship over 5, 6, 7 years, and they start to follow you, pass your name around. And I mean, all the work that I've gotten is either a lot of my like branded doc stuff that I do is like someone will see some of my previous docs that I've made, and they say basically, like I did this thing called Driven by Bacon for Hormel, and they saw my Demolition Derby driver documentary called The Derby Man, and they're basically like, we want that, but for this,
But the car has to run on bacon grease.
So yeah, it was a short film we did, basically across America on a motorcycle and runs on bacon grease. And
Not a lot of Jewish motorcycle riders with that bike.
Yeah.
Let me tell you.
Yeah, so a lot of those, I did one for IBM about autism, and they had seen my drag queen documentary, and just kind of called me up, and we just spoke for a couple of hours, and then did the treatment and the whole process. And so a lot of the branded doc stuff that I do is coming from my previous doc world that I continue to make passion projects with. But the commercial side is usually, as you guys know, is they see something on your reel that kind of reflects their brand.
Right. Okay. Well, you're speeding through all my questions.
Sorry.
Well, I'm curious too, in the commercial space, what would you say what's like your lane or couple lanes that you're in?
Definitely like emotional storytelling. This commercial I did like 20 plus commercials for Etsy, and they're just very visually storytelling with some voiceover. But then I just did this job for Xfinity last week, and it's much more a mom-son story, so it's a really emotional connection there. So I would definitely say it's, commercial storytelling is all about the emotion, and so that's kind of where I fit in.
So like anthem kind of stuff you do a little
Anthem,
bit?
yeah, like definitely in the sports world I do some anthem stuff, but a lot more like tugging
And
at
can
the...
you guys define anthem just for our listeners, what you mean when you say that?
I guess I think of those spots during the Olympics, especially where there's that great like P and G
Yeah,
one,
mom.
the
Yeah,
moms,
the
ones.
Lance Accord one.
Yeah.
Those are like classic anthem spots.
So like a montage that kind of, I think of the anthem, like if you had made a campaign and we're going to make 3 different commercials for how you can travel around the world and eat at McDonald's at all these different places and get to know the place just from the type of burger they have or whatever. That like maybe you'd make one for France and one for India and one for Hong Kong or whatever, but then you do an anthem one where that's like about someone traveling to all those places. Like to me, it's like
It's like orchestra music that builds and swells and has a beautiful climactic sort of moment of, I don't know.
It's basically a music video for a brand.
But it's like a montage that touches all the corners, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to like a very singular story.
Right.
I think of it as.
Yeah, I did some anthem work for Gatorade and like Academy Sports, just like in the sports world, and it's all very like, you know, the music is what's driving it, you know, powerful visuals, you know.
I guess I never thought of I mean, obviously an
So
anthem is a
music-driven.
song, but if you had a montage of like a kid building their own time machine or whatever, and they time traveled somewhere and they did something like, even though it would have the same music as like an anthem, it wouldn't be an anthem because it's like a single
unless there's like a
storyline.
really cool VO and composed music.
Dramatic.
I think
That's
what
an
we're
anthem.
getting to is that we don't know what anthem means.
Yes, we do.
Well, I just used it in my treatment today that's already been sent off, so it cannot be changed. And I do not think I used it the way you guys are using it.
I get in this conversation about what's a slice of life movie.
Oh.
That's a whole other conversation.
What do you think it is?
I basically think slice of life means like there's no story.
Yeah.
That makes me mad.
Like in the commercial or film?
Film.
Okay. Yeah.
There's no story. Yeah, I feel like it's,
Or at least it's not a classic 3-act structure.
yeah, slice of life. It's kind of like those Noah Baumbach films almost, right? Even though stuff happens, but it's like
But
real
Marriage-
people are having real conversations. It's not like the
But
world
Marriage
is
Story to me,
ending.
maybe it is slice of life. Maybe it's good slice of life.
Okay, so I kind of grew up in LA, but Carlyn moved here from 3 years ago now.
Over 4 years, like
From Austin.
4.5.
Why did you move? You said you've been directing for 8 years, and I know you had reasons to stay in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
But why do you think? Because a lot of our listeners,
Yeah.
I feel like half of our listeners don't live in LA.
Yeah.
Why do you think it's important to move here?
The big thing for me is just like the community, you know, like for instance, how we met, you know, just in a coffee shop, you know, like that doesn't happen when you live. And I think you can always go back after you've developed like your connections here. But I think it's important, and I think people start to take you a little bit more serious about your craft if you dedicate a portion, a couple of years, 5, 10 years to being here and just doing the meetings. Like I don't think there's any bad meeting. Like, you know, some of them aren't as good as others, obviously, but you get those out of the way. But just like running into someone that's like, hey, come into Netflix or whatever, you know, you find these opportunities are so much easier to find just by like being in the community, surrounded, you know, by other filmmakers too. Or as in Minneapolis, you know, you can do it through email and phone calls, but it's just never the same as being in person.
Because I'm hearing of like a lot of commercial directors moving to Portland. And when I say a lot, I've heard of 3 different ones. So to me, that means like a lot, but it was all within like the past month. And they're all like, well, I can buy like an amazing house for $500,000 in Portland.
Yeah.
And when I'm a commercial director, I have in a good year, like 20 days of shooting, in a bad year, like 8 days of shooting, you know, like,
Yeah.
So it's not like I actually have to be in, and half the time those shoots aren't even in LA. And I'm pitching
Or
over the
more,
phone.
yeah.
I'm writing treatments remotely. There's not that much that requires you to do your work to actually be in LA. And so I feel like a lot of commercial directors are moving out of LA because it's just like impossible to afford a house here.
Well, I also think it depends if you're on a roster or not. If you're on a roster, usually you never rely on the production company to do all of the legwork for you, but that helps a little bit. Whereas I'm freelance, so I'm my own marketing and, you know, I'm my own networking. So just try to line up like, you know, at least 5 meetings a week.
Yeah, this guy is insane. I mean, he's better. That's the thing. It's like you're the Tony Franklin production company and you are much better at marketing Tony Franklin than like the companies that Carlyn and I work with at marketing us. And that's what, Carlyn, you like officially left where you were on the roster.
I was on a roster for a little over a year recently. It was my 3rd roster to be on, 4th.
Yeah.
And none of them have been particularly successful, obviously. And and I officially left them.
I mean, you worked with all of them. You've done work, right?
Yeah, I would do like 1 or 2 jobs with each, and then nothing would happen after that.
I was on a roster for about 6 months. I did like 2 years of Purina commercials, Purina dog chow or whatever. So I felt like I kind of
love their dog chow.
I felt like I kind of had to. They didn't pressure me. I wouldn't say that, but I felt like I owed it to them to give them a shot. And they're great people, and I still talk to them all the time, and we get along great. They were totally cool. Just like, yeah, they felt just as bad as like, as I did not working,
But do you believe that you are better at pitching you than probably most other people?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely respect a lot of people that have helped pitch for me, like Freelance even. Like, I've been like, wow, that was, really impressive how they went about that whole pitch from start to finish, There's tricks that you can develop, like, you find out who's on the creative call. When you get on that first call, you made the short list, so you're going to do a creative call with their deck and all that stuff. And I find out...
So you're one of the... So just quick, a lot of our listeners are not like in the commercial world, so just...
Oh, okay,
yeah. Over-explaining some things, but like, so you got this opportunity to show your reel to an agency that wants to do an ad campaign, and they picked you to be probably one of 3 directors, right? On this short list of directors that's going to pitch to them.
Exactly. Yeah. So I find out who's going to be on that call, and, I look on Facebook, or if we have any mutual friends that are in the business that might be a colorist, or, I don't friend them on Facebook, obviously, that'd be weird, but, it's the first thing I do when I get on the call, because I feel like you win the job on the call, is just like, after we introduce each other, everybody's kind of say, I don't know if you worked with this colorist, drop the name, and they're usually like, oh yeah, we love him or her, and that just creates a bond right away of like, we're all in this together kind of thing. So there's lots of tricks that you can do as your own marketing, your own pitching, that can help develop relationships right away.
Right. Well, so tell us a little bit about like why you want to be freelance versus like a signed director. So you're effectively freelance right now, right, Carlyn?
Yeah, I'm freelance now. I'm like taking meetings, and I guess I'm hip pocketed at a couple places currently.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you think people know what hip pocketed means?
Well, it's funny because I think of hip pocketed as a little more of like a TV film like agent term, like less a commercial term, but it's the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Where people are doing work for you like unofficially.
Behind the curtain.
Like if there's a job and you seem right for it, they'll toss it to you. But
yeah, like 3 companies right now, I recently sent them all my stuff, and it's on their wire drive, and they have all my shit uploaded, so it's ready to go and I've already been up for a couple. Yeah,
I definitely think that's... I mean,
do they know about each other?
Yeah, I think so. Yes, because I wanted to make sure that their reps aren't the same, because I didn't want to... Because I guess I should explain that, but like, yeah, if I was if I was hip pocketed at 2 companies that had the same reps, and those same reps were putting me up for the same jobs, that might get confusing. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone knows, so it's kosher.
Right.
It's great to be freelance, but I also think the ultimate goal is to be on a roster where you fit in really well, and it's like a family. You guys work towards all the marketing, and I do think at some point that's the goal.
So you think being signed is the better way to go?
Yeah, I think once you develop your reel to the point where you can be on a roster and feel good about getting work with that roster, that's definitely the ultimate goal.
And do you think it's like, so when I got my first manager here, I was trying to get an agent as a director, like a kind of regular Hollywood type agent. And I was like, oh, I know this agent that works at this agency you've never heard of, and I know this and this. And my managers were trying to get me into ICM or CAA or UTA. And I had like a couple meetings, but nothing really happened. And I was like, well, why don't we? I was like, you're literally taking me to the top agents in Hollywood. Like, why don't we go to the next level down? And they were like, dude, there's like 150 movies made a year in Hollywood. If they need a director, they're not calling the second tier of agents, Yeah. Like if you're either with the top tier of agents or you don't need an agent. And so do you feel like there's a corollary like in the commercial world? Like either you're with this like signed on an amazing production company's roster, or you're just freelance?
Well, I mean, there's different levels of production companies too, though.
Asking for a friend.
I would like to know your answer for this too.
I don't know that I have the right...
Tell us, Tony.
What is the magic? But I think there's like, if you can get on like a really good B-list, let's say, production company, and you're the only one with that style of work on that roster, it doesn't have 30 directors on it, then it might be worth it. But if an A-lister comes out and they've got 60 directors on their roster, sure, it might sound appealing to be,
What's like an A-list company? Like a Smuggler or like...
Yeah, there's like boutique A-lists, and then there's like, the big Radicals and Tool and all that kind of stuff, which, it wouldn't make sense for someone like me to be on that roster, because you'd be just drowning in all the director A-list names, you know? So you kind of have to just find the right fit. And I think that's like, okay, what level of production company do I want to be at? And what are the directors on their roster? Who are the reps? You know, all that kind of stuff. You really have to do the research to find the right spot. And, you know, people do ask their, you know, to sign on rosters quite often. But I just feel like right now freelance is kind of where I should be.
Yeah. Also, I wish somebody would have told me sooner that you don't have to sign. I didn't know that back in the day. And then also, like, the last roster I was on, they wanted me to do 2 years.
Oh, yeah.
And I talked to Tim Nakashi, and he was like, no.
No, 6 months.
That's so funny. I just showed Tony my contract with my company, and he's like, it's 6 months, right? I was like, no, I think it's 2 years. He's like, nah. And I looked it up, and I was like, yep, 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
that's standard. I guess
like,
that's what they try to
Tony
get you
was
to sign.
like, why did you sign that? Don't do that.
Because it's like, well, they pitch you so hard, and you're like, well, I guess.
Well, can I tell you, so, and you probably heard a similar thing, but when I signed with the company I'm with now, Superlative, was when they were called the Famous Group. They had hip pocketed me. They actually got me like a Wendy's spot before I was like officially signed with them, and they got me another spot too that I ended up like having a conflict and couldn't do. And they're like, look, Oren, you know, we can get you work. And at the time, they were like really hooked up with like Wendy's, with the agency that was doing all their stuff. They're like, but why would we like invest to like go to agencies and show them your reel and talk to reps and get you on phone calls and get you meetings and like really pimp you out if you are not committed to us? Right?
Yeah. And that's what you get when you sign,
right.
You know, so that's why you have to decide, do you want to get the hustle on for yourself, or do you trust this company is going to pay your mortgage?
Right.
You know what I mean?
And because it's, I think the 2-year thing, or at least a year, is because they're like, look, you're not going to sign today and then we're going to get 1 million jobs tomorrow.
No.
We're going to have to introduce you to everyone, and it's seasonal, and sometimes there's more jobs and sometimes less jobs. And sometimes what you do is in trend or out of trend, or like they're looking for a certain type of director at a certain time. So they're like, we need that time to figure you out. And yeah, but I guess that mortgage thing is the question. Like, how do you pay your mortgage when like you get 5 jobs in 1 month and 0 jobs in 5 months?
Yeah. You know, I do think like also the timing of signing is important. You don't want to sign in like November.
Why?
Well, it like you said, it takes time to get it going, right? So everything shuts down in the holidays. So you're really probably not even dealing with reps until end of January. By then that's 3, you know, whatever, how many months, and you know, you're just sitting there and you don't know what they're doing, you know.
Right.
So, and you can't really blame them because everything shuts down, agencies and stuff like that. So I think it's important to sign like beginning of the year, second quarter, maybe third quarter, but not in fourth quarter.
Well, so I want to ask you, let's say you are a new director and you've made some spec spots. You have like you won a student Oscar for your short film from film school or something like that. How do you find production companies? Because like, you know, you named Radical Media or Tool, you know, Directors Bureau. There's a few companies that are kind of famous that maybe our listeners have heard of, but in general, production companies of commercials are not famous. So how do you find production companies, and then how do you get meetings with them?
Well, I think for me, it started with who are the directors that like I looked up to, find those directors.
Like commercial directors.
Yeah.
And how do you find commercial directors? Like you just go to Vimeo or iSpot.tv, or you watch TV and
everything. You're constantly directing as a director, right? So whether it's through Instagram or through websites, or, you know, you see a spot on TV, like who did that, try to Google it, find it, iSpot, whatever. But basically I just find the directors that I feel like, wow, that's who I want to, you know, emulate or be at that level of success, especially with the style that they have, and go to their website. Even like, I'm not a comedy director, but even comedy directors go to different websites, go to their contact page, see who they're rep by, follow the rabbit hole, you know, until you get to a point where you get a contact, you know, that you want to meet. Just store 50 contacts of like, this is who I'm gonna.
Who is the person at a production company that you should contact? The executive producer?
When I first started out, it'd be the people at the front desk. I don't care. Like, they could get you a meeting. So, you know, especially if you're not from LA and you're just out here for a week trying to do meetings, you just hustle the whole time. Just wherever you can get a meeting. And again,
Can you just walk us through? Because I think this is like the real core of what people will get out of this. Like, you're in,
Sure.
in Minnesota. You're going to come to LA for a week. You want to set up 10 meetings.
Yeah.
You have made some documentaries. You worked in advertising. You have like a couple commercials. How do you find some directors you like and you find their production companies they're at?
Well, that's one way. A lot of it is I was studying production companies, like as a job, as a second job. At my day job, I had pretty much at Target at the time, my last couple of years there, I really enjoyed working there, but kind of worked myself out of a job. Like, I created all these documents as an art director that people could just Google, almost like Google Docs of like how to shoot everything. So I, with the iPhone and everything, I just started searching production companies, and I would just find like 10, 15 a day. That was like my goal, maybe more or less or whatever. But basically then I would go home at night and I have this email that I showed you, just a short, quick, like 6-sentence email. That's basically.
So this is kind of genius, Carlyn. I don't know if I wasn't going to bring it up because I don't know if it was a secret or not, but Tony basically has like an email that introduces himself.
It's a cold email, but I change it based off of, to add a little bit more personality based off of someone that I'm either contacting or that company, something that I like on their website or their directors or their general roster, and then I just say, just like 15 minutes of your time. I'm not looking to sign. I just want to introduce myself. I'm from Minneapolis, former art director, creative at Target. Just kind of give them some, and you might like this film or this film or this film. You just type out the St. Paul Kid and put a link right there so they can just click on it. So they just can get to like 5 things right from that 6-sentence email to see your work. You don't take up too much of their time.
And you don't send them a reel, right? Like
No, just send them that quick email and it's fine if you want to share it or whatever, but it's basically just a short way to get a meeting. So you just line up.
It's almost like a mini bio of yourself, right?
Yeah.
You're like, hey, I'm Carlyn Hudson. I had a short at South by last year. I have a short this year. I did a feature there. I just did a commercial campaign for whatever golf ball company or whatever it is. Yeah. And then
golf balls.
I'd love to have 15 minutes of your time.
And honestly,
do
sometimes
most of them respond?
Yeah, I was just gonna say sometimes within an hour I'm on the phone with them. Like, it's unbelievable, like how open people are if you just try.
Wow.
Not every time, the phone calls are rare, but they might see something on that email that they have a board for on their desk, and they'll call you and say, hey, it doesn't say you're repped by anybody. Can we put you up for this job?
Well, do you say give me a call, or do you say
No, I think the biggest call to action that I say at the end of it is, if a job comes up that fits my style, or I'd love to work with you, basically you have a call to action at the end, so it gives them something to work off of.
I'd love to work with you if the right opportunity presents itself.
Yeah.
Exclamation.
You think it's okay to be in contact with so many different production companies? Like, it's fine.
Well, I think,
He's not saying like anything like, I want to be with you.
I know, it's fascinating. Because I'm just talking to like 3 right now, and I already feel like, oh God, I'm cheating on all of them.
I'm very open about it.
Yeah.
Like, I just like they need that specific director for their boards that come in. We're a commodity. Like, if they need a peanut butter jelly sandwich and you've got the peanut butter jelly sandwich, they're going to go with
some peanut butter spots.
Oh, Jif?
Jif.
Oh, yeah. I did Jif. What did you do? Was it for Ellen?
Funny or Die.
Oh.
Yeah.
Cool. I hope it was funny.
But they need that specific reel these days, so that's why. But then again, after a while, you can find that you're saturating yourself. So if you feel like, your board has gone through an agency's desk, or your work has gone through that same agency 5 times in a month, they're not going to ever hire you. They're like, this dude's everywhere,
Oh, you mean like from 5 different production companies?
It's different jobs, but yes, so I guess
right.
I've
BBDO sees Tony Franklin keeps being submitted by all these different companies. They're like, this guy's
but
flighty.
More directors that I talk to than ever are like, even if they own their own production company, they're being repped in the Midwest by someone else, a whole other production company. So I think it's okay as long as you kind of spread it out the right way and you don't overlap, as far as like, you make sure that it's very important that they reach out to you and ask you before they submit you.
Yeah.
because it's only better for everybody.
How do you say that in your email?
No, that comes like after. This email is
they
very
respond and
yeah.
Yeah.
But then, also I think it's important to, every time I get an email that I think is relevant, I save and put in my MailChimp. It sounds cheesy as can be, but I send the MailChimp out, let's just random numbers, 1,000 people, let's just say. It'll get opened 2,000 times because they share it throughout, maybe their whole agency. And you can find the stats in the back of your...
I know, right?
What?
Yeah, you can
I know,
find...
Tony has all these tools that seems so obvious to you, Tony, but like...
Well, I've never thought of this.
So what you do is...
Like, people talk about it for feature films all the time, right? Like, oh, you should have a mailing list, you should have a fan base, you should have this, like... Emily Best, Seed and Spark, blah, 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 blah. But
the best thing about it, though, is...
Tony is saying do it for yourself as a human being.
Yeah, so I send it out usually like with one passion project and one paid project. I send it out every so often. It's not every month.
Like 4 times a year type
yeah,
of
yeah.
Every quarter-ish?
Yeah, but what happens is... So what you can see is the analytics of it. You can go, okay, well, this person...
And what do you say? It's just like, hey, what's up? I directed these things and these things. I'm
again,
available.
short, very, very to the point, and, try to keep it, as positive as can be and fun. And
Right.
Had a shitty year hoping you could change that.
Can't pay my rent. Need a job.
Right. No, but the thing is
SOS.
the analytics of it is where it comes into key is like, okay, let's say this person at Pretty Bird opened it 12 times. Well, they don't know that I know that. So what I'll do is I'll follow up in a week. Say, hey, I'm not sure if you saw my my latest news, but this is kind of where I'm at these days, and love to meet with you. And so it's just kind of this rotating circle of networking through putting your stuff out there.
Yeah, I signed up for Tony's email list so that I can,
Ooh,
his
I
next
be on
blast,
it.
I can see what he does, so
Yeah.
I can copy it.
And I work with writers. I work with writers to help me kind of craft. Even that email that you saw was written by the writer that I work with all the time. We work very well together. Obviously, we've been working together for like 5 years together now. So she really knows my style and my angle of everything, and we work in the same room together. So it's kind of co-written, like even my treatments and stuff.
But is it like you write it and she does a pass on it, or she writes it and you do a pass? So
basically, the call, like, I don't know if we should explain this, but the call that you do with the agency is recorded. I give her that phone call.
But you're talking about a treatment.
Yeah.
You're saying you use her for everything. Even an email.
Yeah. Even like how we kind of talked that one day is very similar.
Oh, right. Yeah. How I showed you I want to email my production company and you're like, gave me some advice on how to say things a little nicer.
Yeah. I've done that with you too.
Oh, yeah. I do that. Because I get nervous about sending emails, sometimes that are important to me. They might not be at all important to the person on the receiving end, but to me, it's like
it's
very important.
So yeah, you just reach out, like I said, you find people that have looked at your MailChimp, 30 times or 4 times or whatever, but anything like over 2 or 3, I'll follow up again. Maybe not always with another like, hey, this is my news. If you haven't seen it, just keep in touch. Try to set up an in-person meeting.
Hey, I noticed you opened my email 12 times on the 11th of February.
Definitely not.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, and then you just started out with like, hey, I'm Tony. I'm a commercial director. I like love the stuff you're working on and just wanted to make a connection.
Yeah.
Something along those lines.
Yeah, like I said, I have that email that I send out that's just, I change up a little bit based off the person or the company. But that usually is how I get the first interaction.
Do you email the EP or a producer or just whomever is on the website?
Yeah.
Do you ever email more than one person at a company?
I might have, but I don't.
You try to avoid that?
Yeah, generally not. Usually you just go to the EP or, it's good to just go after the producers because the EP is just not going to open your email. But then, you start meeting everyone and they pass your work around, and that's just how you generate more meetings.
Yeah, it's crazy. I know, because I would be at Starbucks and Tony's like, oh yeah, I got a meeting with this company, I got a meeting with this. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, I've been here for like 15 years and I don't have any meetings with anyone.
You must have kind of figured out a way to contact people and successfully too. Cause I mean, I feel like there was times in my career when I was going through these phases and wasn't getting responses. So I either like my work wasn't, your work is obviously great. So I don't know if that makes a difference. I think it does make a difference. It's like if you seem like a cool, genuine person, the work's good. Yeah, fuck yeah. Why wouldn't you respond?
You also have this like combination of being super nice and respectful, but also
Confident.
kind of boastful at the same time. Not, and to lack,
I'm gonna
for
say
lack of a
confident.
better word.
Where's the door?
Well,
kidding.
no. So can I read the subject line of your email?
Oh, sure, yeah.
So the subject line is director of BMW, Etsy, Prudential, Pizza Hut, Wired, IBM, and more. Like that's kind of like, hey, I've done all the brands, right?
Well, I mean, just like a commercial, you want to you want to grab their attention right away.
Mm-hmm.
But then in your second line of the email is like, I hope you don't mind me reaching out. So it's like kind of like nice and polite and like saying like
Midwest.
Yeah.
saying like I appreciate your time, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it all goes back to like living in Minneapolis for the last 8 years and trying to make it as a Hollywood director. You know, you got to just use your strengths, you know, and that goes from just connecting with, you know, so when I got out here 11 months ago or whatever, like, you know, I had eight years of email connections that I've never met in person. Right when I got here, it was just like nonstop, you know, and then it kind of slowed down and now I'm back into it again.
And how important do you think this meeting someone in person is?
Huge, man. They can't tell your passion for what you do or just your, you know, ease to work with based off an email or a phone call. You get in I mean, I'm much more passionate when I get these meetings and you and I hanging out at Starbucks, you know, working on our stuff, catching up. So I think you show them that level, that energy, and they respect that and they kind of want to be around it. So,
but even though when you told us about getting commercial jobs specifically, you think the phone call is really like where you're winning these jobs, that you're able to show your passion and excitement.
Yeah, I mean, because you're not going to go meet with the agency, right, until you win the job, right? So on that phone call, you got to come with 10 ideas, you know, that 5 ideas. I just have a list right next to my computer, all the pluses I've got already. And then just like, you know, show your energy level about it.
When you say pluses, you mean you've read their script and here's 5 different ways that we can make it exciting.
Yeah.
More exciting than what they wrote you.
Yeah. And again, trying to connect with people that they know, that you know, that they've worked with, just so you have that commonality. And then just your approach about being collaborative. Because a lot of these, you know, projects, these agencies have sold to their client, they've been working on for 6 months, you know. Mm-hmm. And so they're finally at the point where this thing's going to happen. So there's a lot of like risk involved with picking the right director. So you got to make sure that your insurance for them to do a good job is in that phone call and, you know, your ideas that they haven't thought about. Not that they're not good ideas already on paper that they have, but they're so, you know, blinders on a little bit because they've been working on the same thing for so long.
Right. Well, what do you guys think about like this idea of plussing their, right? So you get a script from the agency. They're like, hey, we want this lady to take an Alka-Seltzer and then she can lift up a car or whatever. And then you get on a call to talk about it and you're like, oh, instead of a car, what if it's like, you know, a house? But then to your point, Tony, they've been working on this campaign for 6 months. They've decided it should be a car and should be all these things.
Yeah.
Like, how do you approach pitching on someone else's script and like plussing it without throwing away their creative ideas?
Well, I think a lot of these jobs have been researched so deep that sometimes you can't change it, you know. So I always just start off with like, I don't know, like I'm sure this has been put through focus groups and etc., you know, that to the point of where I probably can't stray too far, but you know, here's 5 ideas. I don't know if they fit into it, but I just wanted to throw them out there and see what you think. And you know, it could be as simple as like, well, like for this last job that I did with Xfinity, the spot ends with the guy at his home and he's just alone. I was like, well, what? He's got to have like a rescue dog or something just to liven up the spot. Dogs and kids always win, you know, and also just simple ideas like that. You're
not attached to, but that shows that you have something to bring to the table.
Right.
In
it's
the
like
end, plussing it without changing their concept.
Yeah.
Do you do that, Carlyn, like on the call?
Yeah, because I think when I was starting out, I would either not bring enough because I was like, I want the job, so it's perfect and I love it. Or I would go too far, and I do think there's a balance.
Yeah, I've definitely done that. Like my first big commercial pitch was for this Western Digital campaign, and it was like this awesome campaign. It was this really good idea. It was like a video of like a bride and her dad dancing at their wedding, and then the camera pulls out, and then as it pulls out, that video turns into like a picture on like a lost sign that's like on a telephone pole in the middle of a city, and like it gets real quiet and sad. And it's like,
Jesus.
Western Digital, never lose your most important moments, because it backs up to the cloud. It was for these cloud drives, and it was these it was like this kid playing on something, and then you pull out, and they're like on a milk carton, like pictures
dark.
of it. But it was I kind of loved it. It was like perfect for me because like VFX and like cool moments and just super simple. And I just pitched to them. I like went all out. I photoshopped all this stuff. I mean, compared to my treatments today, it was like nothing.
Yeah.
But back then it was like the most I'd ever done for a job. And then when I didn't get it, the agency was like, yeah, you didn't plus it. You didn't add anything. You just gave us our idea.
Yeah.
Photoshopped. Like, we can do that too. And I was like, oh, I guess you have to plus ideas. And then I've done that other thing where I'm like, okay, your idea of Power Rangers parody is cool, but look at this way better, like weirder YouTube-y thing we can do. And they're like, that's great. You don't have the job.
Right.
Yeah, I'll say like, it's great for the commercial side, but I also do like the branded doc storytelling for like brands or whatever. And that's where you just kind of be honest and be like, look, we're going to have to, I don't have all my ideas developed yet because we don't really even know who we're shooting where, or, there's kind of a rough idea picked out, and maybe they've got the talent already because I've researched who the talent would be. But a lot of that, they tend to like what you've done in the past, some sort of documentary that I've done in the past where they're like, we really like that kind of tone. So but the commercials, you definitely want to try to plus as much as you can.
Can I tell you, I just got a job. I just won a job, and it's kind of like a fake docu-style thing. Basically, it's going to be some influencer starring, but they don't know who it is. And depending on who it is, it totally changes what the entire spot is. And I just pitched them like basically 2 totally different approaches we could take in shooting it and how we could shoot it. I'm like, we could do it like this. This is why I like this version. But another way we can go is this. And I wrote basically like 2 different pages, one on one idea and one on another idea. And then I had 2 different mood boards basically for each idea. And then I ended up winning the job, and I heard that they're like, oh, we like that he had a few different ways to approach this. And I'm like, I feel like I would never pitch more than one idea because you want to be like, as a director, decisive, I guess.
Yeah.
But sometimes having a lot of ideas is like what they like about you, and sometimes it's not. I guess it's like there's no
you
right answers.
Definitely like read the temperature of the creative, and you can kind of feel it on the phone call within the first 5 minutes or whatever. Because they usually read the creative concept to you to start the phone call, and you can kind of feel how attached they are to it or not. So sometimes you might have 5 or 10 ideas written down, but you just don't hit them.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, we should probably wrap up soon, but I wanted to ask, as long as we're stealing all of your genius, what do you think the most important part of a treatment is, like a written treatment? Let's say, so you have the opportunity to pitch on a job, commercial job. But your answer might apply also to like a film or TV job as well. But what do you think? How do you start a treatment? What's the most important part?
Well, I think one of the ways I feel like I've been successful with that is, they know what their creative is. We kind of talked about that. So creating some sort of hook in that first paragraph, the intro, or this is your story in my vision, or whatever, that first paragraph has to have kind of your own hook about it. So it's not anything maybe even to do specifically with the creative of the idea, but you're developing the character.
Do you think it has to be personal, like a personal story? Like, when I was a kid, I used to always go to the rodeo.
For the documentary I did for IBM about autism, like I told them that, there's people in my family that are on the spectrum, and, like I've done very sensitive documentaries with real people, and I know enough about autism that I'm going to use the Interrotron, but I'll Skype with them for months before the shoot. So then when we use the Interrotron, it feels like we're Skyping.
What's the Interrotron?
Yeah.
Is that the Errol Morris thing?
Yeah. So it's basically, instead of a lens, they're seeing an image of you.
Teleprompter?
Yeah. So it feels like we were Skyping,
Right.
And so I got really close to them for months before the shoot. Just once a week we get on Skype with all four of the subjects.
Do you know Eric Zimmerman? He's this DP.
No.
He shot like a lot of Errol Morris' stuff, but we kind of know a lot of people in common. But he supposedly he invented this thing, which is basically you connect the video feed of your camera to a teleprompter, and the video feed of the second camera to a teleprompter, and you put them on the opposite cameras from each other, And so when you're looking into your camera, you're seeing their face. When they're looking into their camera, they're seeing your face. So it's like you're face to face with someone, but there's two cameras in between you. So it's called what?
Interatron? I don't know.
Like an interview.
Yeah.
Tron?
But the thing is like they're different all over the country and world because no one's really, from what I know, I mean, I'm not a DP, has really made one that's like legit.
Perfect.
Yeah. So they're all a little bit, every time I've used it, like we use the camera on my computer and then it goes to another I don't really know how it all works. But there's different systems like everywhere you go.
Right. I guess it doesn't matter on your end because you're not being recorded. It only matters on their end.
I don't see them.
Right.
You know. And generally it's best to be in a separate room with a microphone, and then you put a speaker right underneath the lens of the camera that they're seeing your face on.
Oh, so that they're not tempted to
look
away.
Off. Yeah. And you can still, like, agency can still have their headphones on and hear everything all the questions and answers and stuff too. But it works best if you're in a separate room.
You just did like a docu commercial like a little while ago, right? For that book?
Yes, I did.
Were people looking into the lens or right off the lens?
They were talking to me. I was kind of my voice and stuff was on it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they just talked to
all
me
about
off
Carlyn.
camera.
Every Carlyn commercial, it's just like Carlyn's talking.
That's right. That's my intro to companies. So I am the
You
subject.
are the commercial.
I'm the commercial. I feel like my problem with commercial directing is I have both docu work and comedy, and I kind of don't know how to like pitch myself always. But do you care? Do you think that even matters?
Yeah, I think like I don't know specifically because I haven't seen the two sides of your work.
Sure.
But for me, I just have I do a lot of like branded docs storytelling, but I focus a little bit heavier on the commercial side. I love doing my passion projects with short films and stuff. I think if you go to the documentary section on my website, I think it's like half paid and half passion driven projects. But then on the commercial side, it's much more like brands that have paid.
So when you reach out, are you like, I'm a this kind of director, or no?
I think if people gravitate towards your doc stuff, they consider you the doc person, but if they gravitate towards your commercial stuff, they focus more on that. So I think each producer that reaches out has kind of coined me as one or the other.
Yeah, I have people that reach out to me like, oh, you're great with reality, like and I'm like, yeah, I did like one kind of reality for them, but I think it just depends. I mean, not that you're asking me, but I think
I am asking you.
Yeah,
well, the two priorities are like, what do those people do? So maybe aim towards that, but if they do everything, then just more what you want to do.
But I hear in my question that I could reposition it to like, instead of I need to choose, it's like, look at all these things I can do for you. I can do these two different things. Aren't you lucky?
Yeah, it is interesting because I talk about Abby Fuller all the time. She was one of our first guests on the podcast, and she told us a quote she heard from someone else when she was working at MTV, where someone told her, if you tell people you can do everything, then they won't hire you for anything. And she was always really into food, and so she told them, like, if you ever have a show about food, please call me. And then she, that's why she's doing Chef's Table now, but she was doing, like an MTV docuseries about culinary school. She basically just kept telling people, like, anything food related, I'm your person, even though she didn't have experience in that, but she was the food person. On the flip side, like, I know it's superlative, like I did this commercial last year that takes place in a front yard, like in a residential street, and they're like, oh, this is so great, you didn't have any families on residential streets, and there's so many commercials like that, so now you have it. So it's like kind of, you have everything, but I like what Tony's saying, and it seems like you could say the same thing, because I think of your work, Carlyn, as kind of like emotional storytelling also. I mean, it skews more comedic.
But all my narrative work is comedic, and that's what's confusing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it is.
I feel like my doc work is a little bit grittier, obviously, than my commercial work, but I feel like there's a connection of the emotion behind the storytelling. If it's happy or pulling at the heartstrings, or I feel like there's some sort of connection there.
Okay, so final piece of advice. New director wants to get into commercials. What's the first thing they do?
I think it depends on their style, but, sometimes emulating something that you really like out there to kind of learn how to direct. Make it your own, obviously, but that's a good way to start. And also, don't be afraid to ask for favors from production companies like post houses and stuff like that to help get your work done, unless you're a great editor and colorist and all that stuff. But a lot of times they have newer editors that want the footage just to work with too. So there's good ways to get your stuff, the post-production side done.
Did you edit your own stuff when you started out, Carlyn?
Yeah, I don't anymore, but I used to. Yeah, my first couple jobs were editing, really, like assistant editing.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's different for everyone. I think there's different classes you can take too, like Jordan's class.
Right, the directing boot camp.
Yeah, I signed up for the very first one that he ever had, like 5 years ago. So I had the credit. I had never taken it, so I took it like a month ago. But it's fantastic. Like, it's gold if you've never, even if you're in your first, second year directing or whatever, or however long. Like, I'm in my 8th, 9th year, and I took it and I enjoyed it.
Does he talk about how to get jobs?
Yeah, I mean, he kind of, it's like, it's a really long, good day of learning about directing, Yeah. I think I should have taken it years ago, But yeah, and he has some guest speakers come in. So there's outlets like that, some classes you can take, and, online classes. Like, I watch Masterclass all the time, just like learning more about agencies and writing techniques. And
yeah, freaking my Masterclass. No, my subscription expired.
God, I'm so sorry. It's crazy you can't just get another one.
Well,
maybe you watched everything.
The thing is, if you spent like $200 or whatever it was on a subscription for 1 year,
yeah,
and you never used it, but you really, really wanted to, would you spend another $200 to renew it for the next year?
I don't know, because I got a free one for a year and I never used it.
Oh yeah, well, I did exactly what you're saying. I bought it like 2 years ago or whatever when I first started, and I watched nothing. And then I think a couple weeks ago I was about to get on an airplane, and I was like, oh, I wonder. And so I don't know if I paid for it again or if it's, I'm not sure it's working.
On your credit card, you're like,
yeah.
There's $200.
But I mean, even like the one with, the agencies and stuff.
What's the agencies
one? There are agencies on Masterclass?
Yeah, it's Gold Bee and Silver.
Ad agencies.
Yeah, ad agency.
Really?
Oh yeah. Is it Ogilvy?
I forget.
What?
It's the one. There's only one agency on there. Gold Bee, Silver. I don't remember. Good Bee. Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense.
So yeah, but the writing classes. There's tons of writing classes.
Yeah, I watched Aaron Sorkin's, which I thought was actually pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth it. Like.
Yeah. Oh, and I watched Ron Howard's.
Oh, how was that? Did you learn how to direct?
No. I learned how to be on Happy Days.
Right.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm watching that.
It's
one.
pretty good.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of talking.
It is, yeah.
But somebody told us, someone was on the podcast, and they're like, download them to your phone and just listen to them while you're driving, because there's a lot of stuff that's not that visual.
I did that too, actually, just for the airplane. Just listen to it. Because you can turn your phone, shut it, to the dark screen, and it still plays.
Right. Well, should we talk unpaid endorsements?
Unpaid endorsements.
Well, so first of all, I want to correct an endorsement I believe I made a couple episodes ago where I talked about Sam Mendes writing 1917. It's based on, very, very loosely based on stories his grandfather told him from World War I. And when I mentioned that, somebody sent me a message on Instagram and said, hey, dude, he wasn't the only writer. It was also written by Christy Cairns.
Correct.
So Danielle Borghi wrote me. I think she listens to the podcast, and she told me. Hi, Danielle. Yeah, thanks for the question. Christy Cairns. My endorsement is look things up before you say things. Well, it's kind of a weird endorsement. It's kind of in honor of Tony. If you have director friends or colleagues that you haven't talked to in a while, just text them when you're just sitting down watching TV and say hey, what's up? What are you working on lately? Because I think it's so easy to lose touch with people that you haven't talked to in a while. And I did that last night. I texted this director I used to work with at Disney years ago, and I was like, hey, what's going on? I was just watching something that reminded me of you. What are you up to? And he told me about all this random stuff he's doing, but he showed me this video that he saw on YouTube, which was actually, this is going to be my endorsement. It was a video of the CEO of Patreon sending a video message to Casey Neistat because he had an idea for him. And the video itself is just like this excellently made, like homemade video. Like I think he shot it all on his iPhone or on like a 5D or something. But this guy just shot it totally by himself in his office, and he edited it so well, and like the sound effects are so good. And it totally, I was working on this treatment about like this kind of selfie looking video, and it just gave me all these ideas for my treatment that I would have never gotten if I didn't just like randomly text my friend. So I think just in the spirit of Tony and also Natalie Metzger, who was on our podcast, who just told us to like email people to congratulate them when you see good news about them. Just reach out to people and start a conversation, because you never know like what like awesome ideas or good projects or interesting things come from it. So if you're listening to this right now, text someone that you've worked with 2 years ago and ask them what's up. That's what I got. Carlyn, what do you have?
I'm going to recommend the Calm app for meditating. I've done Headspace before, but I think Calm is
You like Calm
the
better?
one. Yeah, I paid like $50 for it.
One-time fee?
Yeah, for a year. But I do feel like meditating is sort of changing my life.
Yeah? In a good way?
In an amazing way. It has ripples throughout all aspects of my life, and definitely helps with work and being able to concentrate and to not react and to notice things as they're happening. But this app is really cool in particular because there's tons of different teachers, and so you can try out different methods.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I have Calm on my phone, and it's been
do it every day.
It's been recommended before.
Yeah.
The one thing I got from trying meditating and stuff is the like idea of not worrying about things, and like realizing like if you don't figure out a problem that you're thinking about right now, it's not gonna like ruin the rest of your life. And just like about focusing on your breathing and just like kind of letting everything out of your brain. Mm-hmm. And I've done that sometimes when I'm like really anxious or upset about something. I'm like, oh, I'm allowed to not think about it, and it's kind of just a way to help you not think about things that are stressing you out.
Yeah, we live in a very stressful time, and we have a stressful career, and you have to find ways to cope with all that.
Tony, what do you got?
I did mention a couple already. Jordan Brady's class.
Oh yeah.
And then
it's called Directing Boot Camp.
Yeah.
And doesn't he give a couple scholarships to like minorities and women and
like
stuff?
Kind of underrepresented people.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think once you take the class, you're an alumni, so you can go back for like $50. Like,
if you want to take it again.
Yeah.
Really? Oh,
yeah.
Cool.
So.
And he actually does this like Sunday mixer.
Yeah.
Now. The classes are on Saturdays, and like the Sunday after, he has this mixer where people can hang out, and he has a panel of professionals. So I actually went to the mixer it was just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And he had like an EP from a commercial company. He had a woman that owns a post house, and he had this other director, and she does like a ton of international work, commercial director. Cool. It was cool. Oh, and there was another guy there, a director DP guy.
And then, it's funny, like Netflix, I use it all the time for making treatments. I just go full screen, like to get images, because it's, generally the movies are all colored the same tone.
It's 4K.
Yeah, and so since it's in the same color tone, it's the same, like you could do a whole treatment just off of one movie that kind of feels in the tone of your treatment. And then I go to behance.net to get images there too.
Yeah, that's Adobe's.
What's that?
Adobe's
How do you
website,
spell
Behance.
that?
BEHANCE. So those are some good. And Upsplash,
Oh, I don't know that one.
Unsplash. I forget. It's bookmarked on my computer. It's another good place to get
beautiful free images and pictures. Unsplash. Cool.
So you would just like full screen on your laptop an image from Netflix, and then use that in the treatment. It's high res enough.
Yeah, and you can just scroll through.
Yeah.
Use Chrome. I think it only works on Chrome. You can just scroll through the movie so fast, that you can find the right images and need the shot in the kitchen or the shot outside or whatever. But the thing is,
told me about this, I guess.
Well, I just pulled a bunch of stuff from Stranger Things when I had to like freaking steal it off the internet, and it was like low res, and yeah. But Netflix, I think everything's 4K, because I know you couldn't shoot on Alexa for a Netflix show.
Right.
For the longest time.
Yeah, and I think the last thing is, once you've won the job as a director and you've kind of done your tech scout and you got those images from your scout, it's really handy to like go home that night or whatever in your hotel room or whatever and create like an animatic with the dialogue. So then when you show up to the pre-pro meeting the next day, it's like your first like thing that you're giving the agency. So that it just kind of helps everyone go, wow, this girl is, totally into this, and he or she's already got it kind of timed out and everything with the dialogue. Everyone feels like a little bit more at ease going into
Right.
that.
It's funny. I've talked about this on the podcast before, but I make those animatics to show the agency that their script is too long.
Yeah.
And then
it
they're always like,
generally
oh,
is.
you fit it. Good job.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I'm showing you how bad this is. And they're like, no, it's fine.
Right.
I'm like, okay. Okay, cool. If we want to find out more about you, Tony, where do we go? TonyFranklin.com, or have you probably already emailed us?
At TonyFranklinDirector.com is the website. I guess there's a bassist that's named Tony Franklin,
Yeah.
Hell
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
So that, and then, you can connect with me on Instagram and stuff from there.
Cool.
Carlyn, are you on social? I know you're on Venmo.
I'm on Venmo. I got 50
At
cents
Carlyn
from
Hudson.
someone. It was awesome. Yeah, my Instagram is Carlyn Hudson. Are you on Instagram too?
Yeah, I think it's Tony _ Franklin.
That's the worst.
Yeah.
I'm at Oren-Kaplan on Venmo. I hope to see you there. You can find me on Instagram. I'm at okaplan. I've been posting breakdowns like every week or two of like commercials I do and like my animatics and things. So check it out. Matt is at Mr. Matt Enlow on all social media, and our podcast is at Just Shoot It Pod everywhere. You can email us justshootitpod@gmail.com if you have questions, if you want a copy of Tony's email, if you want to know all his secrets, all his past treatments, all his ex-girlfriend's phone numbers. We will try to get those for you. This episode was edited by Sarah Weirda. Our webmaster is Ewan Williams, and the music you're listening to is from the Free Music Archive and the artist Jazar. Thanks. Bye.